Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to a Branch of Laurel interview with Mistress Jadwiga from the Middle Kingdom.
Hello.
So we usually start these off with your SCA origin story. Can you tell us how you find the SCA and what drew you in?
Thinking back on it, because I've watched a lot of your videos, so I was prepared for this question. I actually came across it an amazing number of times. The first time I ever heard about the SCA, only I didn't hear actually SCA. My Girl Scout leader, I was in grade school, was talking about how these people that she knew would get dressed up in medieval clothes and have dinner parties, which is kind of, it sounds like something we do. We get dressed up and we eat, right? So I was like, she couldn't tell me anything more than that. And of course I was obsessed because I was a big fan of Robin Hood and medieval stuff and D&D, and heard about it again in high school when a kid who graduated ahead of me had discovered it and was talking about it. And it was like, oh, this is this awesome thing. I heard SCA for the first time, and we all do medieval stuff and it's great. We can't, but it took place in Chicago and I lived in the far west suburbs. And there was no way, no how my parents were going to drive me into the city in Chicago on a Tuesday night. And no way were they going to let me hang out with the weird kids in Chicago on a Tuesday night. So now we're in college and I was taking Icelandic saga class, and you won't be surprised to find out that there's a lot of Vikings in the Icelandic saga class. And I guess I must have come off as a kindred spirit because a bunch of them invited me like, hey, have you ever heard of the SCA? Come hang out. We have meetings on Tuesday nights. I don't know what it is about Tuesdays, but and I told them no.
Here we are.
All right, and here we are. It's Tuesday. It's a thing. And because I didn't really understand college life yet, and I didn't really understand the SCA, I said, I'm sorry, I can't go. My bagpipe lessons are on Tuesday nights. Not thinking that they have things not on Tuesday nights, or that I'm a big girl now and I could hang out with other people on the weekend. So now I've graduated college and I'm back home in Illinois, and my mom apparently calls me and she found these people in a Barnes and Noble or a Borders book parking lot doing a demo, and she got a business card and said that it's just right up your alley. It's a bunch of people in armor and in medieval clothes and they're fighting, and here's a business card. And I called 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 and nobody called back.
Oh,
I know. I was like, oh, they no care and feeding of the newbies. But like a year later, I start dating this big, tall, goofy guy who is now my husband. And he had just recently made friends with this guy named Rich, who happened to be the son of Duke Dagan d'Aragon, which is one of our ranking peers of the kingdom. And so Rich introduces my husband and his two brothers, and Dagan gets a look at these three frost giant guys. And it's like, oh, please come this way. I have some rattan for you. Would you like to see what we do on the weekends? And then I followed the boyfriend in, and here we are.
And here you are.
And here we are. My very first event was Penzic 26, which is simultaneously the best event to have your first and the worst. It's the best because you're hooked.
I think Penzic 26 was my third event.
So we're comparable. But yeah, it's the best because you're totally hooked and you can hardly wait for the next fix. And it's the worst because nothing else is like Penzic. So you have to wait a whole nother year to do it. And that's how they got me.
Do you go to Penzic every year?
For a while we were, and then we weren't. Kids. I was kind of half-assing Penzic not Penzic, but SCA for a very long time. We were pretty much only doing 12th night in Penzic for many years because there wasn't a lot at the time going on in Chicago. So we'd play in North Shield, we're not very far from Wisconsin. We'd play in Indiana a little bit. So there wasn't a lot going on. And then between school and work and then tons of stuff, we were kind of only kind of playing around with it. And then by the time we got to a place where we had the ability to do SCA seriously, we had a house, we had a yard, we can put up our tent to dry it off. We had a place to store armor and all the clothes or whatever. Then I had two kids and the husband was doing the night path. So it was like, okay, you need to put it to the grindstone. I've got Cub Scouts. So I think I was at Penzic 4 years ago, 3 years ago. That was the last time I went to Penzic. So
Aw.
I know. Ooh. But it's a lot of work because it's like the entire year revolves around Penzic. It's like everything you do revolve, and after a while it's like, can I do something else?
So you decided to do a big tapestry instead?
Funny you should mention that. So the tapestry was something to do at home while the husband was away at war. So
I totally get that. I do costuming for Royals.
Oh yeah, that's a lot.
And my husband was already a knight before we had kids, but then he decided to be kingdom champion 3 times. And that means he has to do a lot of standing in court, and that means that I have the kids all the time.
Right.
So
yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, I bet it was a long 5 years of having a deployed husband. So put the kids to bed at 7. You put in a the director's cut of Lord of the Rings. You sit on the couch with the embroidery frame and
So yeah. Awesome. What got you interested in embroidery? How did you? I mean, did you start costuming right away? Clearly, when you were in college, you had all of these interests that were SCA adjacent.
Yeah, I was very tangential. I got a degree in anthropology. Robin Hood's my personal hero. Big Anglophile. Just wanted, always wanted to live in Europe. It's the one place I haven't been yet. I somehow managed to make it to South America and Australia, and I haven't made it to Europe yet because I love it so much. Actually, I really didn't have a whole lot of interest in embroidery when I started the SCA. I got in the SCA with every intention to fight. My main number one goal was to be a knight. And so here I am a Laurel, because I never do anything right. I just tangent off the way. What got me started in the embroidery is that there was the ANS 50 challenge came out, and it was the competition before the 50th anniversary to do 50 of something. And I had been collecting all the stories and researching all this SCA stuff because I wanted to know how it started. Duke Dawkin could tell us all the early days of the Middle Kingdom, but he couldn't tell us anything else. Like he knew some of the stories of the West because we all come from the West. But he couldn't tell me about anything about Antir or Anstiora or like what was happening overseas, just because once kingdoms break off, you don't hear from them anymore. That's just they're their own thing. So I had to research all these stories, and I originally thought about doing a series of huge stained glass windows, because I totally have the place to have cathedral-sized windows of the first kings. It's like, and at that time there was only I think 16. I don't remember how many there were, but yeah, I was going to do like these full-size cathedral windows of stained glass. Now, mind you, I've never done stained glass.
And something that's super easily transportable too.
Right. And at the time I lived in this little tiny, Chicago apartment with no storage, right? It was like one room. So that's the perfect place to have cathedral stained glass windows. And so I wanted to do the 50-year the 50-year project because I had this binder full of stories, and I had found all the first kings and how it all started. And the more I read and the more I researched, I was like, okay, well, I have all the first kings, but who were the first queens? And then who were the first prince and princess? And then who was the first knight? Well, then who was the first lady knight? And then I just ended up getting more and more and more, way too much for stained glass windows. And I thought, I was like, well, I can't draw, and so I can't illuminate, and I don't know calligraphy, so I can't do like a book. Well, I can kind of embroider, because I knew the basic stitches. My mother had taught me, like chain stitch and split stitch and all the basic stitches. So I came across a book at 12th Night. One of the merchants had the big coffee table book of the Bayeux Tapestry, and I'm like, oh, that's a perfect medium for telling stories. And I was going to, and since I was still kind of half-assing the SCA, I didn't quite understand ANS. So I was kind of making a future relic. So the idea, so it was like the fabric was a little kind of dingy, and it was kind of little, not, crooked and whatever. The idea was, this is what the tapestry would look like if you dug it up like 1,000 years ago or 1,000 years in the future or something. So, and then since I was very poor, all I really had was the cotton DMC. And I was like, oh, well, you know, that'll be fine. I don't think I just really didn't think any of it through. I just kind of like, oh, hey, wouldn't this be a good idea? And started without actually thinking that I had to do 50 years. And if my frame was this big and I had to do every picture this
Wow.
big,
That's a
I just-
lot.
and I always forgot how big it was until I unrolled it. Because if I have it's on a scroll frame, so it's only about this wide sitting in front of me. So I embroider and I move it and I embroider and I move it. So it's only, it's like 2 legal pads maybe. And then I would unroll it on the table and be like, oh my God, what have I done? Oh my God.
What was I thinking?
I just, because, I did the outline and I did the first one and it was very slow because my stitches are very small and they're very precise. And I was like, I'm going to take forever doing this. And I did. It took 7 years from start to finish. It was my
Wow.
life. Like when I put it down for the last time I took that last stitch, I put it down. And I just kind of wandered around the house for a week because I didn't know what to do. It was like a breakup. It's like there's all the stuff in the house, but we have nothing to do with each other anymore. So because it's like, because every time I sat down, I'd be like,
I feel naked.
yeah, I don't know what to do with my hands. What am I doing? So yeah, it was an adjustment period because we were done now.
Well, would you like to me to share your website?
Sure.
Okay.
Pick a picture, any picture.
Let's see if I can make that work.
All right. Yay.
Is it working?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. I can't see it, so
Okay.
that's awesome. Okay, so this is the first year. Do you want to
Yes.
talk about it?
I guess. Let's see. First year. Remember, starting out, I have no idea what I'm doing in SCA or anything. So my sister, bless her heart, is a very exceptional artist. And I went over to her house one day and said, I need you to draw this for me. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, bring it down to like a 2. Bring it down. Just close your eyes and draw it. And so she did this. And it was a start of everything. So I kind of got this, magical mystery, kind of, you got angels and you've got this, the laurel wreath in there because they didn't even have, nothing was started. Not like they didn't have kings. They had a Queen Lemon Beauty. They didn't have a kingdom. They had hobbits, which I loved, which I didn't find out until after I was done with this, that there was a hobbit in attendance. Because if I'd known there was a hobbit, I totally would have put him front and center. But like there's a little hobbit there. But there was Queen Lucy of Narnia too, because we weren't really historical at the start, which was a little bit of a surprise because when I came in, I mean, we still had, there were some people that were doing the lighthearted kind of thing, but there was this really big push that, educational and nonprofit and learning. And then as I started reading like the History Project of the West, which love the History Project, thank you, West Kingdom. I kept finding all these early days of like mentions of Gandalf might be coming to the party. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we kind of started off lighthearted. Just
very, very Lord of the Rings influenced.
It kind of started out as, like a Lord of the Rings appreciation society, and every third person was an author, which I think was a requirement to join back then. You had to be an author, right? Poole Anderson, Mercedes Lackey.
It's been really interesting interviewing some of the earlier people because they like met at different SF writing conventions.
Right? Yeah, they just like name drop. Oh yeah, so I was talking to Robert Asprin. And, oh, well then, all right.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so we had a lot going on here. So this is like year 2 is when we made rules for our game. Like, because when it was supposed to be a one-off party and everybody loved it so much they kept doing it. And then after a year went by, they're like, oh, we kind of need to codify this because we were kind of doing it and we've been really kind of playing off the cuff for the last 50 years. So, kind of like making up as we go along. But we have like the Laurel started year 2 because, nowadays you can get on the internet and buy, hand woven diamond twill wool from, you know, like Poland. And back then, no, you didn't have. So you had to make everything. So the artisans started, we had knights and masters were, the Order of Chivalry was made that year. There had been 12 peoples elevated to the chivalry in the previous year, but that year, like, they made it an order. And that tag is actually, I have a second project going on, which is at the end of this tour, where I'm tracing all the knights and masters from the original 12 to current day. Under the idea, because I never do anything small. So under the idea that only a knight can make a knight, there should be an unbroken lineage from the first 12 to the guy who was knighted yesterday.
Right.
And I'm trying to trace it, because I've come across snags that sometimes if you've had an unbelted king or a master king, somebody else has to hold the sword. You need a stunt double. And that's somewhere at the end for more. I think there's a link to no, the other more. The other more.
Do you want me to skip to that?
We can, if you like. We can just be all over. That's fine. You won't see it. You'll see a link to a Google Doc, and it's a spreadsheet, and it has, because there were 12 original people. Yeah, you can click that. It might take a little bit because it's big. So so that's my problem children page. I have a page of all the problem children, because especially in the early days, looking at you, Atenville, a lot of Master Kings, and they elevated a bunch of people. And so I have to figure out who held the sword on them. But if you look at the bottom, you'll see like there's Richard of Montreal, William the Silent, Henrik, Siegfried, a couple more down there. Yeah, those are all, you see all the names in red I'm still searching for. I either don't have, because sometimes I feel like I have so much to talk about.
Great.
When I've gone through all the kingdoms, I'm now going to call out all you kingdoms with bad OPs and no history. When I've had to do this, I've had to go through all the like all the OPs and try to match dates and when they are. And a lot of elevations happen on coronation. And if the kingdom has step down and step up on the same day, and they have people knighted in morning court and people knighted in evening court, it could be either king. So I have no way of knowing who's who. So it could be one king, could be the other. Some don't even have dates, like, oh yeah, they were knighted this year, but
this one.
Yeah, but like, yeah, there's no dates when they're elevated, or they don't have when the king reigned. Like they have the list of kings in order, but they don't actually have the dates when they reigned, which is complicated. Yes. Or my favorite is that when a principality goes kingdom, they purge everybody from the rolls. And if the new kingdom doesn't upload all that information, it's lost. Don't do that, please, kingdoms. Don't do that. Keep it.
Nice.
Keep it. So it's been, this is my other project that I do.
So if anybody knows any of these people in red,
just email me, carrot.con@gmail.com. You can type give her my email address. I'm not afraid of lots of mail.
Awesome.
Yeah, but if you go to the bottom, you could, all you chivalry people, if you go down to at the bottom of the tabs where it says Richard and William the Silent and Henrik of Haven, if you click on those, it'll be everybody descended from that particular knight, and you can search for your name and figure out what tribe you belong to, what flavor. I think there's 5 lineages out of the original 12. There's 5. And I think one of them is in danger of extinction because there's only ever one guy elevated. And I don't.
You want me to click on one of them?
Yeah, go ahead. Go William the Silent. I think your sister's under William the Silent because I'm creepy and I'm stalky like that, and I already looked up her name. So, and I apologize because it's what I do. It's like, oh, I know your name. Click, 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 click.
That's really cool.
So it should.
So let's see.
You can do a search function, I think, and I don't know where she is, but I think she's under William the Silent. But and I also put in the parentheses like what kingdom there were, because it was interesting to me to see. It was just purely for me. It wasn't for any important, it doesn't matter. what kingdom you got elevated in because, you know, of the society. But it was interesting to me to see how they traced from one kingdom to another. I had the good fortune of going to Great Western War a couple of years ago, and I met a Viscount from Summits. And I looked up his lineage, and I was highly entertained to find out that there was this knight in the Summits who actually was descended from underneath Duke Dagan in the middle, and then, you know, from the west. So this lineage transferred from the west, moved all the way up to the Middle Kingdom, to the Midwest, and then moved back to the Northwest. It was just interesting to see how the migration happens, you know, and you'll have, especially because of military personnel, they might, you know, they got elevated in Atlantia, and then they knighted somebody in Lockjack, but then they knighted somebody in Drachenwald, and now they're living in the West, and they knighted somebody there. So it's interesting to see just how it moves across the known world.
I'm still scrolling down this list.
Some of them are very long. There's some of them are like long this way because they have many generations, and some are long this way because like one guy will knight 100 people, maybe not 100, but you know, excessive. So it goes long and long and long. So,
wow.
Yeah. And I know that I have, you know, I'm sure that there's duplicates and there's names missing, and since most of the time I only had to go by the OP of who the king was, I don't actually know if somebody else held the sword. They very rarely detail that, unless it was something of note, like his personal, like his brother did it, or like his knight did it, or there's somewhere in here there was a man who got elevated while king, and so a different kingdom's king knighted him, and then somebody else took the buffet because you're not allowed to strike the king. So I have that noted in here because that's kind of a cool story. So
I found my husband.
See, see, William,
and his squire.
What?
Wow. But I didn't find my sister.
I
There
could.
she is.
There she is. There he is. Oh yeah. So yeah, you can. I highly encourage everybody who's watching to search for your name, search for your knight's name, search for your household's name. Send me corrections. Send me the, well, actually, there I was, no shit stories, because I love them. I love them. It's what I do.
Wow. That's really cool. All right, I'm going to try to get back.
Okay, yeah, go back to the tapestry, which is what. All right.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so back to AS2, then we'll go to
so
AS3.
Okay. So, yay, so East Kingdom started. And I just updated all the links on the page. So anybody who's watching and they want to know, I want to know more, all those links should be fresh. And I just had the opportunity to speak with somebody who put a website out of how he remembered how the East Kingdom started. And that's that whole line of like debate as to how it started. He has his memories listed and all the conflicting stories and dates and everything. So I highly recommend reading it.
Wow. This is like an SCA History Geeks dream.
It is, actually, it is. Funny story. When I got elevated, I actually had to ask what I was being elevated for. So I wasn't sure. I know you're like, 95 foot of embroidery. What were you elevated for? But there had been, talk about I was not the embroidery laurel, but I was a history laurel or the SCA history laurel or a research laurel so embroidery is official, but
all of the above.
All of the above, I guess. And there's no one repository of SCA history anywhere. Again, back to that whole like kingdoms have principalities that leave and they purge them from the rolls and they're done, which is the most awful thing ever. Please don't do that again. So there is no one repository for it, and some kingdoms have wonderful histories. The West Kingdom History Project is really good. It's hard to search, but I like it. Qaid's Wiki, love you guys, love it. And I really think that every kingdom needs to have one. because we're in a race against time now.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting older, and we're not playing as much for health, for money, for time, for plague. And now's the time we have to write all these stories down before they're gone.
Right.
Because it's we don't have much time left, and I hate to make that sound all doom and gloom, but it's kind of the theme for 2020, quite honestly.
Well, and that's part of why my sister and I started these interviews, was to get some of that going. We were going to start with interviewing the Lions of Ontir, because they're like the movers and shakers, the people that established our kingdom. And we've learned so much.
It's like, our culture and mass is very much oral tradition, and not a surprise, because nerds in any flavor tend to have a lot of the stories and the folk songs and whatever. We don't really write them down a lot, and part of it also stems from when we started in the 60s with a bit of a resurgence of folk and whatever, and also there's no internet. So, and now it's easy to write all this down. Before you had to write it down and mimeograph it and copy it and hope that you could sell $3 copies at the next event, and then they get lost and forgotten and thrown away. So we didn't really have the means. I mean, I suppose we did, but it was like so onerous and so burdensome to write it all down back then. So we just kept it in the oral tradition and repeating it at events and Bardic and Fight Club and whatever. So, Fight Club. And so now we have the means to record it for forever, as long as we have internet or whatever version we have 100 years from now.
So we need to get on that.
We need to get on that. And nobody's going anywhere. Now is the time to write your wiki page. Now is the time to get that story down, to record that song. If your kingdom doesn't have a wiki, I highly suggest you get on it. For those kingdoms that do have a wiki page, please get on it. I highly recommend, if you don't want to write yours because it feels weird, like bragging, write your peer, write your kings, write your squire brother, right? To have your nemesis write it, because that will encourage you to fact check it. I mean, it would just get everything you can uploaded. Take pictures of your scrolls and tag them back to the artists, tag them back to the kings that gave it to you or the barons. We've got time for projects. And if you can upload it, and if you can find somebody to help you, because I have to admit that I'm not the wiki templates I'm not sure how to navigate them myself, but find somebody to, take your interview, upload it, take a picture, upload it, and even if you think, you'd be surprised, think, oh, well, I'm not anybody, I'm not a peer, I don't have a brass hat, I don't whatever, nobody, I don't have any interesting stories. You'd be surprised. Just the things that you would remember of, like, oh, I was at this one event and I remember this person on the field did this person, or this person in court did this, and you remember that story, and somebody's like, oh my God, I didn't think anybody remembered that, or, oh, that was me, I didn't think anybody saw it. And you'd be surprised at how the things that you remember kind of circle back around, and they create this bigger web of memory of the things that we've done. Yeah, of history. It's just, no story is too small, I guess is what I'm saying, because you'd be surprised at how it might resonate with the person who's hearing it for the first time. They might think it's the most wonderful thing in the world. So,
and,
right,
and every view is an important view. Right.
It's just, somebody might be, you might have a memory of somebody who has since passed that their loved ones don't know about, and you sharing that memory of them is priceless, because it's something new that they didn't have before of that person.
Great. So do you want to continue to go through this year by year, or do you want to go to some of your other work, What would you like to
We
do?
can, if there's a panel that you really particularly like, or you're fascinated, or you're like, tell me more. I can go whatever year you want to. I do have a YouTube link up there someplace in probably videos. So if you want the floor show that I did at 50 year, it's a 20-minute show. Get a drink, and I go through and I tell the stories of all of them. So.
Cool. So the link to your website is in the event description. I'm being attacked by my cat right now.
Oh, okay. No
So anybody that's watching can access that. So let's just kind of, what's the Suicide King?
Suicide King. That was the start of Penzic. There's a couple different stories about Penzic. Everybody knows the myth about how Caradoc was king of the Middle, declared war in the East, stopped being king of the Middle, moved to the East, became king of the East, then accepted his challenge. What? Wait, did you not hear that one? That's the story that I heard when I first did this one. So the Suicide King is Caradoc because he was king of the Middle and king of the East. But I have since then come across different stories of where I believe it was King Iriel of the Middle who had sent Caradoc as an ambassador to the East with the declaration of war. And then by the time it all happened, he had become king of the East. So similar, close, but not exactly. But, you know, good legends are good legends. So
Interesting.
Okay, so I think I have a couple more. Okay.
And then there's my home kingdom.
By the way, I love Checky. I love Checky. But it's awful to recreate in any medium. And so whenever you see, that's the only time I did Antier's coat of arms, which I love. It's the prettiest, I think. But it is so awful to embroider, I never did it again. So every time you see Antier, it's Checky, but there's no lion because I wasn't going to do that again in miniature.
Yeah,
sorry, Antier.
I've made a lot of regalia, and you're not wrong.
Yeah,
it's not easy to do.
Yeah, it's my personal favorite. It's the prettiest heraldry is the worst.
It's labor intensive.
Very labor intensive.
Okay. Are there any of these that you would particularly like to talk about?
There are ones that I love, all for different reasons. Like one of them, some of them I like them for the layout. I like this one for the layout. Some of the images, let me talk about that. Because it was based on the Bayeux Tapestry, I shamelessly stole images from the tapestry. So if anybody who's familiar with the Bayeux Tapestry will recognize, oh, this is the dinner scene. They'll recognize, the church that I used for the Suicide King. Anytime you see a horse, I shamelessly ripped off images from, what's it is? The Mannaeus Codex? Is that what it is? I'm not sure what it is. But it's a German codex, and they have lots of people on horses. And so every time I need a horse, I lifted images, because to steal images was very medieval. So the idea I had behind it was that much like imagery back in medieval times, you're telling a story without words. And that I tried to make it as self-explanatory as possible. And oddly, it wasn't as self-explanatory as I would thought. There were several times where I had it displayed and people thought it was the history of that particular kingdom, not the known world. Even though I have all the different kingdom arms in it, people are like, well, what happened in the Middle Kingdom at this year? Oh, no, there's no Middle Kingdom in that year. So that was a surprise to me that I did not make it as intuitive as I thought, but I tried to get as much as I could. And then it was also difficult because all these images after a certain point are apocryphal, since I'm pretty sure that all these kings and royals or whatever weren't actually doing anything that I pictured. I just needed to have them all in the same image, except for a couple of them, which were accurate on accident. I don't know. I just pulled it out of the aether and it kind of creeped me out. So yeah, see again, Antier did not want to do the lion. That was your one and only permanent royalty we've ever had, which is a worthy thing to aspire to.
Janeltis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Which was awesome. This one, I liked it. I had the pleasure of meeting Her Grace Willow, first queen of Aotearoa. And when she had come down by the tapestry, I have the story down on the bottom of it, of when I spoke to her about how, oh, you got it right. And I'm like, got what right? Apparently he did ride a horse into the first coronation. And he would never fight attorney unless she had given him his favor, or she had given him her favor. She's like, oh, you got it correct. I'm like, so I'm really pleased by that one, because I apparently tapped into the universe and did it right.
That's really, really cool. So Drakenwald,
Yes.
have you talked to Duke Thorne about this at all?
I have not. It was very hard to find. Some kingdoms eluded me, and I really only had like the most basics. I didn't, at the time I was making this, I had like no Drakenwald context, and every email I sent out was just kind of dropping into the mist. And I don't know if it was a language problem, if it was outdated emails or whatnot, but I had very hard time finding anything for Drakenwald. And that was actually one of my major fears in doing this, is that I would make a panel and get like 3 years down the line, and then the story would either be completely wrong or somebody would give me more. Like, you forgot this, which did actually happen a couple times, but that was like my biggest fear. And that, like, every time I finished it, I'm like, oh, please don't let there be anything else. And sometimes there was.
Well, if you're interested, Rifkin and I interviewed Duke Thorne, and he talked about the founding of Drakenwald and his involvement in it. And I can hook you up if you want to talk to him further after watching the video. So
yes, I would love to talk to history
Let me know.
people. That would be great. Yes, hook me up with all the people who have the history. Yes, please. Yes.
He's really, he really loves history, so
Yes.
he'd be great to talk to you. All right.
Yeah, see that one I stole from the Codex.
Oops.
Totally. Oh no, see that's anyway, I want to say it's the Codex Manessa. It's a German one, but they have lots of
don't
horses
know.
in it. Yeah, I would surf the internet and look for, like, medieval images of horses and just lift things out of it. So,
And make it happen. Is this a turtle?
Yes, it's a turtle. Okay, a note on all the marginalia. Marginalia. I was trying to go for the big word there. Sometimes if there was a lot going on in that year, I would have smaller stories along the edges. And sometimes, since everybody is in the kingdom arms, I would try to make notes of their personal arms. Like if they had a bird in their arm, or if they had a griffin in their arms, I would put that in the margin just as a personal note that was their arms. And then sometimes they were just fluff. Sometimes they were like kingdom awards. I want to say the hammer is a kingdom. There's a Callantyr award that has the hammer, but my memory card can only hold so much. And sometimes they were just fluff. Sometimes, since my sister is not a medievalist, and I would have her do this every so I would go to her house and have her draw 3 images at a time, and they took roughly about 40 days per. So every couple months I'd come over and get another 3. Sometimes I had to let her draw whatever she wanted. And in the edge, just to keep her happy, because she's like, are you done yet? I'm like, no, there's 50 of these. I'm sorry, I owe you a steak dinner. I'm really sorry. Really. Part of that not thinking all the way through. Sisters
are the best.
Yeah, she's awesome. And that's the first time you see the Western flag show up. I had it on display someplace where I hadn't actually gotten to this year. And it was at I want to say it was at a Crown Turdy in the Middle Kingdom. And we had a Westie expat, and she had gone through the tapestry and was highly offended, like, where's the West Kingdom flag? And I'm like, oh, I didn't put one in. So I had to do this one specifically for the West Kingdom flag. Sorry, guys. Sorry. So they didn't have one year one. And so I just didn't think about it till now. So I'm sorry about
and
that.
That's Keelskin.
Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry. Oh. This is one of the ones that I didn't realize was not intuitive. Since I lifted shamelessly from the Bayeux Tapestry, if you look at the Bayeux Tapestry, there's this point where I think it was Harold died, and you see the hand of God coming down doing the whole. And this is the Queen of Atenville died in a car accident coming home from an event. And so I thought that it would be the connection between the hands coming down from heaven, between that hand and the Bayeux Tapestry God hand would suggest that somebody had died. And
Right.
I was wrong. Apparently in Trimaris that year, there was a hurricane. And so people who were from the Gulf Kingdoms interpreted the hand of God as the hurricane that came through and delayed the coronation. So that was an eye opener for me. I'm like, oh, people interpret this differently. All right, something to note.
Language is always tricky.
Yes. Outlands is a hard one to get. They didn't have a lot of, they have a, Outlands, please write things down. You need more history, please.
So Their Majesty's Outlands are currently doing an interview show where they're interviewing all past royalty.
I think I saw that. I haven't watched it. I should watch that.
You should. It's called Royalty, TEA.
Yes. I should watch that.
And so I bet there will be some nice nuggets of history in that.
There'll be some good stories. This is my favorite. It went global. I did narwhal. Yeah, my sister asked, "Can I put a narwhal in there?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." She's like, "Yeah, narwhals." I'm like, I hadn't heard the song yet, but apparently my sister that narwhal song, which I won't sing. But I was having her do the map, and she loves maps, and I was like, "Okay, give me some sea monsters," and she like started singing the song. I'm like, "Whatever makes you happy, Katie. Just narwhals are cool. Just do it." Supposedly there was a chess game that happened that year. That was something I overheard. Sometimes when I'm walking doing the floor show up and down the tapestry, I hear other people talking about that year and the things they know and the things they did. And I don't know who I overheard in like going back to the start to do the next show. But somebody tells me that year there actually was a chess game between the two sets of royals, but I have not been able to confirm that. So if anybody wants to tell me whether or not it actually happened, send me an email. Love to hear it. First queen by our own hands. Now we have two.
Very cool.
If anybody has any questions on that, I will definitely like answer them.
No questions yet.
Okay. Since I have the whole known world's a captive audience right now, you have to stop claiming Antarctica for whatever kingdom you come from. Lockjack owns Antarctica. Stop. Just, you're going to create an international incident, but they own it. Stop. Drop it all again. The SE has a lot of griffins, I found out. I would pay a lot of money, never have to embroider another griffin. There's a lot of them. I didn't realize that until I started. I was like, there are other animals out there. We need new animals. There are a lot of griffins.
It's true.
It is. I didn't, yeah, until you start embroidering all the arms, you're like, oh, it's another one. Oh. This is where I messed up. You can see a seam in it, right? Or like I'm pointing the screen like you can see.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, there's a seam. I was so excited for that year, which I have since cut out. I was so excited. So I did the whole thing, embroidered it, posted it, put this big long saga of how much it meant to me, went to bed, woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, realizing I had the wrong year.
Oh no. So
I had to cut it out and redo it. Oh. So yeah, it was awful. That was my big blooper for the tapestry.
Only one. That's impressive.
Yeah. This is about the time I joined. I think I might have joined somewhere in there because I remember being the SCA when Jafar died, and people have asked me why I included royals who have passed. since I haven't included everybody who has passed, because that would be too many.
Right.
But since I was still fresh to the SCA and still like overwhelmed with everything and I saw the insane amount of emotion that had come from everybody and how badly it hurt everybody and how profoundly it affected the kingdom, that I had included all the royals that had passed while sitting the throne, just because it helped. I think those moments shaped the kingdom, and it was worth remembering. It was a major event in a kingdom's history to lose a royal, because by the time you win crown, everybody knows you if you don't know everybody else. And so it really is like losing like that favorite aunt or favorite uncle. And so it's people like, why'd you put sad things in? I'm like, it really needed to be remembered, mentioned.
That's an important part of history.
It is. And strangely, if you think about how much time we spend on the road yearly, I mean, it's very lucky that we have lost so few people as we have.
Yeah. Kith is asking, how much time did each panel take?
Roughly 40 days. Some took less, like East Kingdom only took me 28 days. And then there were some that took like 3 months. And if you look at the tapestry when it's up, the first 10 years are very dense, very elaborate, very, very complicated. You know, I have these big trees and I have these big towers calling to mind everybody's, all the names. And then I realized that was just not sustainable, and they became simplified. They became less ornate as we went along, as the grind went faster. But roughly 40 days just to keep me on the track of, because if I didn't set myself a schedule, it wasn't going to get done in time.
That's smart.
That was another thing I did not know. I had made this one, and I wanted to do right by Caitlin and Osis. Since the Bayou Tapestry didn't have any more funerals in it, I had already used the church. I'd already used the bier of the king, the bear of the king. So I made the boat to send Osis off, not realizing that that's where the Penzic boat burning ceremony comes from.
Oh,
that
wow.
They had done that. I had no idea. And you think that I had been in for so long, as much as I did, and I would know these things, and I didn't, and I felt bad. But that apparently was another one of those boop, that I picked out that I managed to make the connection.
That's perfect.
Oh, and then the onion. Somebody marked that as our Weird Al moment. You know that you've made it in this life when they're doing parodies of you. So the fact that we made it to the onion is our big,
big deal.
Our big pinnacle moment. So.
That's when nerddom officially
right.
became cool.
That's when weirdos became cool. We're all the cool kids.
If you were gonna do this again, what would you do differently?
I'd like to do it in period stuff, like actual wools and the actual linen. I'd also like to have a guild of maybe like 10 people to help me do it. Because it's a lot as one person. I almost didn't finish it on time because I woke up one morning and my thumb was swollen. Like overnight, my thumb's just like, I'm giving up. I'm done. We're not doing it. So I had to wait until, tendonitis or something or whatever. So I had to wait for it to calm down to do it again. So yeah, definitely having backup.
Lockock is another, we interviewed Rowan.
Yes, I saw that one. It was fabulous.
So cool.
Nice. I really enjoyed my time down there. That's everybody should go once at least. It's fabulous. It was getting really thin by the end. The last like 10 years or so, we were running out of history because we weren't making new kingdoms and new principalities every year. And none of that, but it was so new that all the good stuff hadn't bubbled up to the surface yet. So it was actually kind of hard to find things for the last 10 years. I was really like slogging through things, and that's when I was getting irate at kingdoms for not having OPs and not having wikis and not having. And this is the start of the AS50. This is what started my descent into madness. I'm pretty sure if it wasn't for this challenge, I might never have done this tapestry. I just
Right.
have a binder full of stories, and I would be able to win SCA trivia around the campfire someplace. And people are like, how do you know that? I'm like, I'm just weird like that. But so. And this is what reminded me that we were running out of time. We have Yang the Nauseating died. Our first knight died. We have to get those stories down. We have to, you know, get on your wiki and write the stories of somebody you remember, write the head of your house, write your dependents, make them work for it. But you need to get those stories down while you can.
Yeah, I've tried several times to work the wiki and I cannot figure it out.
I had help do my wiki, and I think I think I've probably deleted my picture accidentally 5 times. My picture's not on it, so I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's, but yeah, if you could, I mean, even if you can get people to fill out like paper copies, like you hand everybody their homework at an event and they fill, what's your name, what's your date, you know, and then somebody else uploads them on their free time, even that, but just something to get those dates and those stories, then who was who and when was when. It's vitally important just for the next 50 years.
Dragon's Nest.
Yeah, it was a very quiet year. Not a lot going on.
We're interviewing Sir Mari tomorrow night.
Ooh, I'll have to watch that one. So there you are, Sir Mari, if you're watching.
That'll be fun. Oh, inspirational equality. Was there a panel for that that I missed?
For what?
Inspirational equality.
Yes, go to the next one. Next year. Yeah.
Forward or back?
Forward in time. Forward, one more. There you go. We have our 2 same-sex barons in Kaid.
Oh,
Kaid. Yes.
Okay.
The barons of Leadenholt. So, and then the next years we had our first same-sex baronesses, which were a mother and daughter team in Andelcraig. Yeah, I have to read Andelcraig here in the middle. So,
very cool.
You know, like all the firsts. That's what I was doing. All the firsts. That's me. Alvacall was slated to go Kingdom this year, and I got really excited because awesome, I finally have something for that last year. And then the polling, whatever, and so they paused it. I'm like, I have nothing for year 49. What am I gonna do? So I realized it was very medieval to put myself into it, because that, you know, that's how you all have all the de Medicis at, you know, the nativity, you know, things like that. So I put myself in there. There's my sister. All the things on the sides, the margins, have nothing to do with anything. My sister just wanted to do, you know, tattoo flash. So I did that one. So and then the order for this one to be legit, the next year I had to do in advance of AS50. So I did day 1 waiting. So the thrones are empty, and then we've got token Masters of Defense, because
cool.
who knew who was going to be the first person to be elevated.
But you knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, we knew it, because on day 1, every kingdom could elevate up to 3. So I have 3 people there. And then not knowing if it was a man or a woman or what kingdom they were from, I had to put them in non-kingdom colors, which was hard because, you know, that's 7 colors. I had to try not to put them in kingdom colors, and then, you know, who knew what it was going to be. So this is like the preview. But in order to make it like legit, I had to have it done. And I think I finished 1 month before AS50.
Wow.
Like right at the finish line.
That's amazing.
So
what a cool project.
So it's, and then I've been keeping track of things as they happen, because as I said, there's no one repository for the SCA. And so any sort of big event in one kingdom, somebody on the other side of the world is not going to know about it, because it's only in their kingdom, and it's only on their OP, and it's only in their stories, and nobody knows about it. Right. So I've left this for the future, for anybody who wants to know the first person or whatever, or anything that big that happened in Kaid or North Shield. So this is for you guys.
And is there somewhere else on the website that you'd like to go, or do you want to just talk now?
I will follow your lead if there's something else, because I'm so used to seeing this that I'm like, I don't know. You have to ask me a question. What do you want? I can tell you something. Okay. Give me a platform. I'll tell you a story.
So after doing this, you continued to do embroidery.
Yes, I did. Some of it was because I was told that I needed to do more because I hadn't yet impressed anybody enough to impress the Laurelette. So I needed to do more, which I know now was just smoke being blown at me, but I did it anyway. And then some because, people wanted things I have two pelicans here. People were elevated and they asked me to embroider for them, and I did. That's Wendell's. It done Mongolian. Mongolian doesn't have a lot of zoomorphics, so I kind of had to make that one up. But right. The chain stitch and the layout would have been really,
perfect.
Appropriate. So I tried to get as much as I could, but some cultures don't have pelicans as any sort of symbolism. So it's really hard to find depictions of pelicans in that culture's art. So
right, you kind of have to adapt like another bird, and
yeah, which is why I took a firebird for Nadezhda, because she was doing had a very Asian theme. So this one I had a lot of fun because I had never done that type of embroidery before with the satin stitches, and it was all new for me. And I'm like, okay, we can do this, because I always try a new technique on something that I'm giving to somebody else for the first time, because
that needs to be perfect.
Right, that needs to be perfect. And so I'm going to do something I've never done before. Right there. So I did that one.
I think we have to go look at Kit's pillow now.
I gave him so much help for that, rightly deserved. So.
We're knocking down things here. Awesome. Wow.
I'm like, don't you have people for that, Your Highness? He's like, I do. I'm asking you. I'm like, oh, all right. Okay, I see how this is.
So this is Sinagua, yeah?
Yeah, he was Princess Sinagua, which is, he right now is my big, I'm totally calling you out, Kit, sorry. He totally wants me to continue embroidering the tapestry, because since he's the first foreign Princess Sinagua, he gets to be in it.
Ah.
So, I've already picked the picture that if I ever actually get that far that I'm going to use, and he has nothing to say about it.
That's a little scary.
As is right and proper.
Awesome. And are you doing oh no, this is embroidered.
Yes. I had a Baroness.
Is amazing.
She there's a Baroness, and I'm going to botch the name. Isabel, crazy spelling. She does Islamic calligraphy, and so I had the Knight's Oath for the Middle Kingdom translated by a professional translation service, because Google translation can be kind of iffy, and so I had them translate it, and then I gave the translation to Her Excellency to calligraphy, to calligraph it all out. And I actually learned a lot that time, because I had this idea that I was going to do like something from the Blue Quran, and I was going to do it all gold on blue silk and da-da-da-da. She's like, oh, well, based on time period of the persona and whatnot, it would actually look more like this. And I was like, oh, all right. So I changed it all up and did this one instead. Again, totally new techniques, unproven, did it first time knitting school, because that's what you do.
Because you're a badass.
Because I'm reckless and I don't think things all the way through. Do not take me as a role model for that. Just practice. It works so much better.
It's fearless.
Yeah, just I have this running downhill thing that I do that I can't stop. Oh, these. So I got roped into a bunch of fundraisers that were going on, and so I said, okay, for $50 I'll do a cushion. If I hit 100, I'll do 2. Not realizing that cushions were really popular, So I did a lot of cushions. So I did a couple for the Baron and Baroness. I did some for people here in the Midrealm. The shells down there are for a lovely lady in New Zealand. The green ones way at the bottom are for a lady in Artemisia. And then I want to say the bottom ones are for, oh, I'm gonna feel bad. She's in the West, right? I think she's in the West. I feel bad. It's the West or Caid, and I feel bad I don't remember. But yes, I've tried black work and I discovered I hate black work, the geometric black work. And I don't know why I hate it so badly, but it fills me with rage. And I thought that maybe it's I just don't like counted work. I'm clearly an organic, free-flowing embroidery, but I love needlepoint, which makes no sense. I don't know why it is. I hate geometric black work like needlepoint. And I found this very relaxing for the most part. Trying to lay out the pattern was difficult on a few of them. Circles are always terrible on a grid. They're just awful. But I found, once I got the pattern set, it was very relaxing. And so it was just very enjoyable to sit there and just.
Very cool. So, someone fixed your photo on the Midrealm wiki.
Thank you, Sir Seamus. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, you're correct.
Oh yeah, that was the black work coif that I finally finished it, but it hurts a lot. I really need to put pictures of it finished, but it took a really long time, and those are all period patterns that I found from different pieces and whatnot. So but it was a slog. And for everybody who's doing embroidery, who is thinking about doing embroidery, let me tell you something. Not all embroidery is the same. If you are a kick-ass pattern darner, don't feel bad about yourself that you can't do late period gold work. You are not lesser for it. You are not as skilled for it. I cannot do pattern darning for anything. It's just, I can't wrap my head around it. It doesn't work. But I can do the knotted plate gold work Elizabethan one. And you'd think that if you could do something very complicated, you should be able to do something really simple. And it actually doesn't work that way. Think of embroidery as drawing. It has the same idea, but graphite's going to be different than chalk, which is going to be different than oil pastels, which is going to be different from ink. It's like painting. Watercolor is different from oils. You can paint, but the medium has a lot to do with it. And so the technique. And so if you are wonderful at flat silk, you might suck at wool. It's just something that just, you think, well, if I can do this, I should be able to do this. Not really. So
it's true.
Yeah,
I do a lot of applique and wool embroidery, and like my first couple of years in the SDA, I took a blackwork class, and the teacher told me that I was never going to be able to learn blackwork, and that it was never going to happen. And so I've never learned blackwork.
It's fine. And there's some people out there who can master all forms, and they're a goddess with a needle or a god. But don't worry. If you can't do a particular form for whatever reason, it's fine. You are skilled and amazing. And then also, since blackwork is counted, you might like counted blackwork, or you might like organic blackwork, where it's the outline and it's the seed stitch. Mm-hmm. So try them and see if maybe you like one of them. And then, yeah, an all counted work is not the same. This is, I did this silk on linen, and counted. It's a German brick stitch, and I like that just fine.
It's beautiful.
It's just so it's different from the rest of them.
And then when you do stuff like this, do you draw the pattern out first?
Not always. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the 3 dimensions. I take measurements, like, okay, around the head and around this, and I do the formulas and I lay down the fabric and I cut it, and it's either 5 times too big or it's for a Barbie doll. There's some step I'm missing somewhere, that translating a 3D measurements to 2D medium and making it 3D again, I've lost it someplace. So I eyeball a lot of things and hope for the best. just like that one.
Make your mistakes work.
Right. Just, and like that one is like way too small and tight in the shoulders. So he only wore it for a year, but he was going to outgrow it anyway, because I think he was 5 in this photo. So by the time he turned 7, it wasn't going to fit him anyway, but you can see where it's a little snug.
Do you pass down your kids' SCA clothes?
I release them back into the cycle. There's people who have kids who are younger or just smaller, because my children are frost giants. So, and the only thing I've kept is I made the kids outfits for my elevation, and I still have those just because they have, the coat of arms on them, which they probably won't use as they get older, but I make coat of arms for them for the elevation, and I've kept those. Everything else, as they outgrow them, I just, send them out, because it's a drag to make kid clothes, because they're going to outgrow them by the next event. And it takes you make a tunic, they wear it, you go to the event 2 months later, you try to put the tunic on and you can't get it around the melon. It's just, you're like, oh, I got to make kids outfits before the event. So it's just easier to be like, here, have a tunic, have a tunic, have a tunic, have a tunic. So I've released them all into the cycle.
My kids are 17 and 11 now. And every once in a while, a picture will come across my Facebook feed of something I made my 17-year-old when he was tiny. And it's so exciting, because it's like the 9th or 10th kid that I've seen wearing this outfit. It's like, wow, that's still circulating.
Yeah, it's cute, because you can see how it just goes along. They're like, oh, I love that tunic. I'm glad somebody's using it. So
awesome. And my kid is 6'5" now, so
yeah, that's mine. That's where mine are going to be at right now. So
crazy. So you've done a lot of work. Just the tapestry alone is enough. These are really beautiful. Split stitch. Oh, nice.
Yes. I got the idea from a friend of mine who's a countess in Laurel of embroidery in the East Kingdom, and they were doing gifts for swag bags for the roses, and they had done this, and they're little Kleenex hiders. You can
cool.
So that way you're not walking around with a little thing of like pocket Kleenex. You can hide it, so it looks all you're hiding it. And then somebody else, for the life of me I don't remember, but she found out that if she took her Apple or her iPhone out of its case, the iPhone fit in the Kleenex package perfectly, and so that she could use her iPhone in the little slit where you put the Kleenex in, and nobody could see that she was playing with her iPhone. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
That's super cool. And I find working silk on silk very challenging, because it's kind of like chalk, like fingernails on a chalkboard. There's this weird.
I have a large quantity of flat silk, which is what I did the scroll for the Islamic scroll, and I would have to sandblast my hands before using it, and moisturize for an hour and be like, okay guys, you have to do dishes, because I can't do anything except touch the silk. And there were days where I had the blue nitrile gloves on while I was embroidering, because I just could not touch the skin. I couldn't take off enough skin to make it smooth. It's
funny.
Yeah, just it's rough.
Ooh, travel. Oh, so this is where the tapestry traveled to.
Yes, and I think that I've taken it more places. Yes, I've taken it to more places, because after the bottom where it's at Border Skirmish, I took it to Penzic, I think maybe the year after. And I want to say I took it one more place, but at this point my head is so full I'd have to go back and read my journal or something. But those were all the places I took it. So
very cool. So you've been a Laurel for how long?
3 years. I think I got elevated in 2017, I think.
2017. Is it different than you thought it would be? I'm going to stop screen sharing.
Okay. Well, back to that whole half-assing the SCA for a really long time. I did a non-traditional path, is what people like to tell me. I was never an apprentice. I didn't in my house, the household that I was in, we didn't have any Laurels. I knew a few and we hung out and whatever, but I was never part of that A&S community. So I never did any A&S competitions. I never did our pentathlon. I never did Kingdom. I never, so I didn't know the routine. You know, I didn't know all the people. I didn't do the circuit. You do this challenge, you do this challenge, and then you move up to Kingdom, you do this challenge and this challenge. I never did the whole circuit. So I didn't really have an idea of what the Laurel was about beforehand. And I really don't know what it's all about now that I'm in it. So because, I got elevated and I have 4 kids and now we have a pandemic. So I've been to like 2 meetings in person and I've been to a couple online. So I really don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I always pull in my poll and I read and I look at Facebook photos and I read blogs and whatever, and I listen to YouTube videos, but I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm doing it right. I think. So nothing really changed for me except for now I have a job that I wouldn't say unprepared for, but I didn't have a clear idea of what it's about.
You're taking on. Yeah.
And it's not that I had misconceptions. I just don't know that I really actually thought a lot about it. I thought that, Laurels had apprentices and they do art things and they get together and they talk about their apprentices and then they do competitions and that was the entirety of it, really. So I didn't really, and it's alarming now because people are like, you're a Laurel now, you know everything.
Okay.
Which I know you've probably had the same thing happen. So I try to direct them to somebody who might know better, or somebody who's at least closer to them, because Elgin is about maybe an hour and a half west of Chicago, depending on traffic. So I'm kind of like on the edges of the empire. There's not much left past me. There's like another, like 2 more groups than Callantyre. So we're really on the edge. And so if people want, somebody who knows something, I try to find something closer to them, because not everybody can learn online. Not everybody can learn through pictures. Sometimes they need to actually have it in their hands in that 3D space and turn it over and, smell it. So I try to get closer to home. I mean, I hope I'm doing a good job. I'm sure if I'm not, somebody will tell me. But so it didn't. The only thing that changed for me now is people are like calling me by a title. Like there have been times I've been at an event and I've just introduced myself and somebody's like, Mistress Jadwiga. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. I forgot. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, I still, that title is weird and awkward and I don't do it.
Yeah, I don't, it
just doesn't work for me.
It feels like a formal thing. Like if I'm in a formal setting and I'm addressing His Majesty or, Her Excellency or other masters, mistresses, sirs, I feel like I could use it then. But if I'm like kicking it in like at fight practice or around the campfire, I feel weird bringing it out because it feels like I'm trying to set a bar. Like, oh,
yeah.
I'm like, no, that's cool.
I think most of the people that I know that are peers are like that too. They don't want to take full advantage of their titles. They want to just be a regular person and hang out and have fun.
They don't want to. You don't want to hit people with it. You don't want to. It's bad. It's like it's the fancy hat. If we're all at the campfire, you take the hat off, and then if we're in fancy place, you put the fancy hat on.
Yes. That's a pretty cool looking medallion. Who made it?
I feel like I know people. This was made for me by a Duchess Caitlin. She was a queen of the middle and also queen of Eldemir. a Laurel. I never had a formal peer, but she was my mentor. So she was the closest thing came to it. And so she made this for me for my, I can't take it off.
Oh, that's really cool.
So she made that for my ceremony. I have 3 medallions. This is my fanciest one. So when I'm doing the late period fancy, I have this one on. And then I have my early period, and then I have my everyday one.
Do you ever wear your medallion when you're doing a particularly difficult or new to you art?
Have I worn the medallion, but to remind me that I can do this, or?
I wear mine when I'm like, I really have to get this right, so I need all the good juju. So I put on the medallion of power.
Power of the Laurel, power of the Laurel. No, I haven't, but now I'm going to.
Yeah, I totally do that.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna be doing that. I hadn't yet, but now it's in my head. So now I'm going to.
That's my secret. That's why I can do full stuff.
Is that how you do it? The magic?
Yeah.
The magic happens?
The genie comes out and does it for me. Oh, it's funny. Oh, medallion wearing during PAL work. Well, maybe not. Do you
Oh
fight?
God, no.
No.
Funny story about fighting. I'm full of funny stories. Yeah, I try to fight. And this is where all of my local Knights Council will get snarky with me. I have been trying to fight since I got into the SCA, whenever Appendix 26 was. And every time I get into armor, something bad happens. First time I got into armor, my car washed away in a flood. I went through job loss. Then my job made me work weekends, where all the fight clubs was happening and all the events were happening. And then had a couple kids. And then once we got to the house and the husband was on the night track, then I was definitely not fighting because somebody had to keep the home fires burning. Finally got back into fighting after everything was settled. Hurt my shoulder really bad. Like couldn't move it. This is like, and I was really pissed off because, that's like all the Dukes have shoulder surgery. Like at the end of the, after they've won crown or whatever, you don't start with a shoulder injury, you end with a shoulder injury. So I was really pissed off. Got physical therapy, was back into fighting. I made a TOC. I did a tournament in North Shield. It was awesome. Pandemic. So I'm sorry, SCA. It's my fault. They don't want me fighting, and I don't know why. Apologize. Sorry.
Well, to encourage you, my husband started out with a shoulder injury.
So there's hope for me?
Yeah, he started out fighting right-handed, injured his right shoulder, and then learned to fight left-handed.
Oh, thankfully I hurt my shoulder, so I had to go from a center grip to a strap because I can't bear the weight. So, but I also can't really do pole arm either because it's one of those things. I have this narrow range of like moving the pole. If I move it too far in the wrong place, it's like, oh, I can't use my arms anymore. I have to take a break. Sorry, I'm tapping out. Somebody else go fight him. I'm like, oh, I can't use my arm. So yeah, so we're working on it. Now, hopefully we will go back to Fight Club, and by the time Fight Club started again, I can fight again.
What are you doing during this pandemic to keep your interest going in fighting or arts or whatever?
That's hard. I mostly tried to not eat my children. And that's a full-time job. I have a couple of projects on the frame. I have a gold work piece that I'm trying to finish because it's been on the frame for 3 years and I need it done. So I'm finishing that. I, of course, I've washed 30 yards of fabric with the intent to make 5 new dresses, which are still on the project table. And then I have the husband made me a pell in the backyard. So I try to go out there once a day, and it's good for burning off stress so that way you don't eat the children. I highly recommend it for like going to go and just hit that pell for just a dozen times. Like, oh, I feel so much better. I can go make dinner now.
Do before last week when we our air became poisonous and we literally cannot go outside our door.
Oh, yeah. That one's not my fault.
Yeah, it's bad. My husband was doing pell practice with a group of people online every night.
Oh.
And I think that it has saved his sanity.
Yeah, that was when the lockdown first started. I was watching the coach's corner and like drill practices and like keeping me fired up. It's hard to maintain that momentum. It's just like you just go through and like, oh, I don't want to watch everybody else having fun, you know, because there's still some people who can still fight in their bubble. And so they're out there and they're practicing and they're doing, and you're like, oh, I wish I was there. I'm so it's hard. So I'm trying to watch the videos to keep my my chin up, but it's rough.
Very cool. Well, is there anything else that you would like to talk about this evening?
I was going to use this moment to like chastise all the kingdoms that don't have good OPs and wikis, but I apparently did that in the beginning of the interview, so I guess I don't now. But I mean, I can remind everybody, please, kingdoms, households, baronies, groups, whatever, write your stuff down. It's so important. We kind of have the time in the world right now, assuming you can keep focus. Please write down the things that you remember, even if it's a he said, she said, like in the West Kingdom History Project, or if it's like a straight up wiki, like Caid's, which I highly recommend it. Go look at other kingdoms and see what they have. See if you can import that local, even if it's just for your household, even if it's just for your shire or your barony. Get what you can down while everybody still remembers it. Because you just don't know. And now's our time.
Our friend Susanna would like to see the gold work.
If there's somebody upstairs watching this who could possibly bring my frame down. I'm listening for footsteps now.
Somebody hit the like button, so hopefully.
I'm not hearing movement, so
we'll
give it a second. Maybe it's because it's downstairs in the living room. I was working on it today.
He says he's on it.
Oh, he's on it. Thank you, Sir Seamus, for your service. I'm looking for him to come into the. He'll be here in a second. What else do I have out there on? I'm hearing thumping.
Kith is saying night lineage project. Should we go back and revisit that?
I don't know what it's. All right, so Kith, since you're all up in my grill, what do you want to know about the night lineage project?
Elaborate.
Some of our ancient animals don't play anymore for whatever reason. And I know that some of them aren't interested in coming back, but if you still talk to them, thank you, darling. If you still talk to them, drop them an email, get the information, email it to me, I'll add it in. Go ahead. All right, here we go. Since Sir Husband brought it. Ugh.
Oh, wow.
So I'm trying to, whoa, okay. I'm getting like, so it's, these flowers are green, so that's why they look weird, is because the green screen. So there's not shiny, but it's taken from a tutor something or other. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it. This was one of those projects that I started because I was told that I needed to do something to impress the Laurel after I did the tapestry, which I know now was blowing smoke, but I was a little salty about it. So I did this. And then I started this and 3 months later I got elevated. So it's been kind of languishing. It's too small for a coif. It's not the right size for the German Brustflex. The only thing that I think that can be done with it is make a book out of it. But I don't do bookbinding. So if there's a bookbinder out there who wants to make a deal, I'm almost done. I don't know if I can get any closer.
Shiny.
Yeah, it's very shiny. And unfortunately, since I've taken so long to do it, you can see how the gold has tarnished unevenly.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, because I would only buy so many yards of gold that I could afford at the time. So, you know, you buy, it's like, it's $2 a yard. So I would buy, you know, a dozen yards and then do that and then have to wait and save up my pennies and buy another dozen yards and save up my pennies. So and since you're supposed to keep the gold work away from heat, humidity, lights, and we have no air conditioning in the house, it gets humid in here. So the gold kind of gets a little weird. So it's kind of interesting to see how it'll darken. And I'm kind of curious as to whether or not eventually they'll match. Like it only tarnishes so much, and then the rest of them will match it, or if they'll always be like couple scrolls will be darker than some of the other ones. But,
just a little variegated.
Yeah, it's just a little. But I suppose if it's on a book, you can put the dark side on the back so the fronts are really shiny. So,
and then maybe as it gets used, it'll shine
yeah,
back
the
up.
oils from the hands and whatever, because I mean all those embroidered books that we have in the museum, whatever, they're all done with like massive amounts of gold work, and so I mean it can't hurt it, I guess, that the handling of it. They survived from the 1500s, so it should be durable enough to use like 5 events a year if you're going to make a book for whatever reason. So
very cool. So usually I do a final 4, but I'm looking around and I don't have that list upstairs. It's down in the smoky basement where we can't go. So it's on my list, but I can kind of think about.
Yeah, just ask me anything. Just random. Okay. Spin that wheel.
In my brain, been spinning all day. So money's no object, and you're gonna make a thing with a tool. A special tool. What thing would you make and what tool would you buy?
I think I probably have all the tools that I would use. I have frames. I'm trying to think. I don't.
It could be a new art that you've always wanted to try that you finally have. Oh, I forgot one factor. You have all the time in the world with no, no kids, no husband.
Kids are off in college, finally. Oh my God. I could, if no object, money, no object, time, no object. There are 2 things I'd like to make. And one of them I don't think I have the skill set for. One of them would be Roger II of Sicily, his coronation cloak. The red one with the big gold lions. I've researched into that on the stitches that they use to do the gold and whatever like that. And I realized just the pearls to outline everything would probably bankrupt me. So I'm like, the gold probably it'd be the pearls just to outline the lions and whatever. Even though I know where I could possibly get the enameled plaques. There's people I know who can do the enameled plaques. So that's actually not hard to get. It's the pearls. I think that would probably do me in. And then
you should talk to my sister about that too, because she's done some work on that.
Well, she wants to do Roger II's cloak.
Well, she did the Sport of Kings Champions cloak.
Oh, okay.
And God, I'm sorry, my brain is such a sieve this week. Duke Sped ended up winning it and then wearing it to his last coronation.
Oh.
So Sven Randallson, if you take a look at his Facebook profile, you can see the cloak that she made. It's pretty cool.
I'll have to look that up. The second thing I would make, which is far beyond my security clearance, would be the vestments of the Order of the Golden Fleece. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but I highly recommend. Let's see if I can. I don't know how to share a picture with you. So, the vestments of the Order of the Golden Fleece. I'm not even sure what era they're in. A late period for, but they're or nuée, which is the silk painting over gold. And I don't. First of all, I'd have to find somebody to draw the pictures of all the saints for me to color in. And second, I don't think my stitch work is that fine, let alone over gold. But that would be, if I could do the pinnacle of my art, if I could do it, would be to make the vestments of the of the Golden
Oh
Fleece.
my goodness. Okay, so I'm
You
just
found
pulling
it?
up. Yeah. So let me see if I can screen share. I'm just gonna screen share my my Google search.
That's fine. Yes, that is. I don't think I will ever. My work would ever be that fine.
That's
Even
crazy.
if I found somebody to draw the highly realistic scenes for me to stitch over, because a lot of times you put the cartoon on the fabric and then embroider over it. I don't think my stitch work would be fine enough
Wow.
for that art, and so that's.
But
So
if
that's
you
why.
had
Oh, go
if
ahead.
you had unlimited time,
Right. If I had limited time, I would do that. Although I think that if I could get any tool to do any project, I would get a guild of embroiders to do it with me. So that would be my tool. I have these backup dancers, like 20 people be like, let's do this. We could get this done. But yeah, so I'd probably do Roger's cloak before I do the Fleece's cloak, just because I think I could probably do Roger 2 of Sicily. I bet you I could do that one.
I bet you could too.
Money, no
That's-
object.
I think that's the one thing that I miss most about not being able to meet in person is having those stitch days where you have a bunch of people come over and you all work on a project together.
Yes, it's
I
just
miss that.
the camaraderie of just project day. Yeah, I miss that too. It's just the whole. Oh, what are you working on? Tell me about what you just. Yeah, I miss that. That's
Trying
hard.
to do that on a Zoom meeting is too it's too chaotic and it's
Yeah,
too many people. It's too much.
Yeah, and then then you get feedback, and then the camera cuts out, and it's not the same.
No, it's not. Okay, question 2.
Okay.
Again, money, time, no object. There's no plague.
No plague.
Where would you travel to do research? What would you like to go and see?
Oh, so many things. I'd like to finally get to Europe, where the history comes from. I think Roger's cloak, and I want to say the Order of the Golden Fleece cloak, I think they're both in the same museum in Austria. So I think Austria is where I'd like to go, just to get a close-up view of them. I'd like to go to, there's places in Norway that do some early period. Oh, I don't even have that up there. I forgot, I had an applique piece that I did on the intarsia, I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, where you cut out the images in the wool and then you replace them. So you stack them. So if you cut out the image on red wool and you cut out the image on blue wool, and then you switch them. So it's now blue on red and red on blue. And then you outline it with metallic leather. I did that one. And there's a couple of them in Finland that I'd like to see. And I found somebody's blog who they did a reconstruction of it. And I was able to, and thank God they put an English translation that was like all in Finnish. I'm like, oh my God, no. And then at the bottom they had English. I'm like, oh, phew, thank God. So that I would like to go there and see all them. And then where else? There's a third place. I think that might be it. Definitely Austria, where they have all that. And then Finland, Norway, Sweden, and maybe the Vatican. I bet you the Vatican, I think they probably have some embroidery there I'd like to take a look at.
They must.
Yeah, I'm sure they have to. Feel like maybe I'd have to make a special deal and make a donation to the church, but maybe I could take a tour of the papal wardrobe and get all the gold vestments. So,
Buy your way in.
right? You're like, come on, Your Excellency, Your Eminence, Your Holiness.
Okay. Last question. What would you like to see that we're doing now to kind of limp along, carry over into the rest of the STA's lifetime?
These recordings, I think, are very important. You said you were starting off with the Lines of Antir just to get those stories of back in the day. And I have noticed an uptick in the bardic circles, singing all the old songs, singing the new songs. That is excellent too. Mostly because that way you can actually hear the music. Because I mean, back in the day, you could buy like a songbook, but if you don't know the music, or if you can't read music, if they actually have included, you can't sing the songs. You know, you could, you know, back in the day, you could also buy a cassette tape and you could listen to it and know the songs. But so the uptick in bardic is awesome. The interviews that we have here, and even the training videos, I think that will be very important in the future, because the style of fighting from the early days to now has changed, and you have different schools of thought. You've got the Bellatrix school, and you've got, you know, different, you've got guys in Outlands who are fighting this way. You've got guys in Midrealm are fighting this way. And so even the recording of all the different styles is fascinating, again, for later periods, later SCA periods, for when maybe a new style of fighting will come out, and they'll be able to compare it to the Bellatrix style and Outlands and the Midlands and Trimaris and Atlantia. It's all the recording of our stuff, of all of our oral traditions, of all our hobbies. I was going to segue off that one now, and of course my brain is totally like fried, and I forgot what it was. I put a pin in it and I lost the pin.
Oh no!
It was about our stories. It was about writing them down. It was about recording them. I'm gonna remember as soon as we log off.
As soon as we log off.
As soon as we log off. It's something about what we're doing now and continuing it. Part of it, continue the video. There are a lot of mediums in the SCA that are perfect for recording our history. Like the tapestry, there's no one repository for SCA history. And we're really good at documenting these 5 years that happened in Outer Mongolia in 5000 BC. But a lot of people don't know what happened 5 years ago. And I would think that not only should you be writing down your stories and the stories of your peers and your dependents and your household, your family, these different mediums that we have, the illumination, the song, the embroidery, is also a good way to document things that have happened, to preserve it. I mean, yes, please write it down on a wiki, but by all means, make that cloak with the epic doings of that one guy that did that one thing, and now you have it all on it, or, you know, illuminate that big piece.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's like, you know, we have, the Middle Kingdom has a very good tradition of having scrolls with every award, but just make the arts, just make the scroll of what happened and hang it on the wall. Make that apron for your apron dress with the rune snake and whatever, and the figures documenting that fight that you saw. Preserve your own history in the mediums that we have, and wear them. Wear your stories. Paint your stories. Hang them up. Have big banners and hang them in your tents of all the. You don't have to embroider them. You can paint them. It just you know, sew them, whatever. But wear your history.
I love that. I love that. These hangings out either side of the door of our yurt are my throne sweepers.
Oh.
Yeah. So kind of starting to do that a little bit.
You have a turtle and a ram?
It's a ram. It's Davin and Groa, and then this one is Brendan and Ariana.
Yes.
So yeah.
Do your house history, your lineages, and however you do your lineages. The knight lineage I have is a strict by the sword. You know, from one sword to another. And I know that many people preserve the knight squire lineage because it's much more personal, you know, and
right.
it's you know, and they're usually household based. All lineages are important because they have a trail of history. Your household lineage, your apprentice built lineage, the by the sword lineage, and how it travels. These history moments are invaluable. Wear them, show them, hang them up, paint them on your tent, paint them on your shields, sing it at the campfire. That's,
Share it.
I cannot emphasize it enough. Because this is who we are, and this is how we're going to remember who we are once we get out of lockup.
It's gonna happen.
I hope.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for giving me a platform to yell at all the kingdoms.
Such a treat. I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we, for the sisters interview tomorrow, Rifkin and I are interviewing Samari. So that's super exciting. And we have more interviews next week, but my list is in the smoky basement, so I don't know who we're interviewing.
You get that later.
We'll figure that out later, one day at a time right now.
Right.
Anyway, thanks for being up so late, and
Oh, my pleasure.
have a good night, and thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you.
Good
Bye,
night.
SCA. Bye.